Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ruby Pearl Glamper True Crime Podcast. My name is Amy. Welcome to my show. Hope everyone has had a good week. It is Friday, it's the weekend, and all I'm really looking for is this weather to perk back up again. I suffer from fibromyalgia and mild osteoporosis and amongst a whole other host of health issues. And all this rain coming in and these cold fronts that are coming in behind them. And then it goes back up to, 60, 70 degrees and then rains again. A cold front comes. You might as well be beating the shit out of me, because that's what this weather does to me and my body. And it is no fun at all. So for those of you that have been following the Gabby Petito case, you're probably all aware by now that Gabby's parents, Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, and their spouses have filed a civil lawsuit against the parents of Brian Laundrie, Chris, and Roberta Laundrie. And basically, in a nutshell, the lawsuit claims that Brian confessed to his parents as early as the day after he murdered Gabby, that he had murdered Gabby, and that they have known, about it since early on. And by not communicating with the Potatoschmidt family as they were searching for Gabby, that has caused them severe mental anguish. And the lawsuit also claims that they were even attempting to help Brian flee the country. Well, the Laundries, of course, their attorney, Stephen Bertolino, and his Bertolino baloney, have filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Stephen Bertolino saying that the lawsuit is baseless and frivolous, and that the Laundries have done no wrong, and that it is their American fundamental right to remain silent. That they were only exercising their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and they've done nothing wrong. That they were not obligated to speak to the Petitos and Schmidts regarding anything that they knew. You all know that the case of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie is a tragic love story that ended in murder-suicide. And that this case, unfortunately, is never going to see a criminal courtroom. It is never going to see any type of justice for Gabby. Brian took his own life after he murdered Gabby, and therefore he will never stand trial and be prosecuted for what he did. But for these parents that have been left behind in their kids' deaths, this case for them, the parents, I feel, is an Old Testament case of an eye for an eye. And as the old saying goes, an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. You know, I don't know how Chris and Roberta Laundrie feel about all this. I don't know how they feel about losing their son. I don't know how they feel about what their son did to Gabby or anything like that, because they will not talk. They will not discuss anything whatsoever. But I know that the Petito and Schmidt family have just been left gutted and empty. They have no answers, no justice, no nothing for their daughter, Gabby. And that's got to be the worst feeling you can imagine. And I know that that's probably why they chose to file this civil lawsuit against Chris and Roberta Laundrie, it's not about money or anything like that. It's about getting some type of justice for what Brian did to Gabby and for what Chris and Roberta put them through. You know, they have, in the lawsuit, it basically kind of states that the Laundries just broke and violated all moral code of conduct in a civilized society by not talking to the Potatoschmidts and telling them what was going on. I mean, I have never... Yes, I know we all, as Americans, have the right to remain silent. We are all afforded that right. Whether we're innocent of a crime, whether we are guilty of a crime, or whatever, we are all afforded the right to remain silent. I get that. But this is a case, as I said, of that Old Testament eye for an eye, and that's not how our world operates. You know, God says that we are not to go by the Old Testament. We're to go by the New Testament. And there is a lot of talk in the Bible about injustice. But, you know, will this civil case end up in court? Will it be dismissed? You know, we don't know yet. But, you know, when do the line has been blurred between our lawful right to remain silent and our civil moral values that How could you put a family through this? I understand protecting your kid and all, but how could you put this family through this? Reverse the situation. What if this were Brian that Gabby had killed? What if this whole situation was reversed? And you're desperate to know what happened to your son, and the Petitos and Schmidts won't do anything to help you. How would you feel, Chris and Roberta Laundrie? I honestly don't know how these people would feel, because from day one, they, along with their attorney, Stephen Bertolino, I have never seen such cold-blooded and heartless people in my entire life. You know, for someone who, you know, Stephen Bertolino and Chris and Roberta did not kill Gabby. But it's almost as if they might as well have. So, for someone who hasn't committed a crime, I've never seen such cold-bloodedness in my entire life. It's just sickening how you could be so cold-blooded and put a family through this. And it will be interesting and almost basically kind of groundbreaking if this case makes it to court, and hear what a judge has to say about this blurred line of the right to remain silent and our civil moral code of conduct. You know, it's kind of like the Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy case, which was groundbreaking. And you know, they ended up finding Michelle guilty of involuntary manslaughter. You know, her words encouraged and incited her friend Conrad to commit suicide. So I feel like this case between the Laundries, between the Potatoschmidts and the Laundries will be a bit groundbreaking itself. But what do we do? You know, how do we get to some kind of conclusion in this case in order to heal? Now, let's remember that this is not about us. This is not about me. This is not about how I feel. This is not about you and how you feel. This is about Gabby Petito's parents, her family, and how they feel, and what can bring them justice, and what can bring them peace, that they can begin to heal and move forward. It's not about us, the John Q. public, and how we feel. But I was thinking about this last night, and, you know, whether they will win this civil lawsuit against the Laundries, or whether it'll even make it to a courtroom. I've talked about this before, and I have mixed emotions about it. Being a person of the John Q. public, being a person who has dealt with their own mental health issues and whatnot. And what Brian wrote in his notebook, the confession that he made, and his taking responsibility and admitting that he had killed Gabby. These were Brian's last words before he took his own life. And, you know, that in and of itself is a horribly sad thing. I honestly believe that it's not just because Brian didn't want to face the prosecution and persecution for what he did to Gabby. I don't think he could live with what he had done. I do believe, despite their issues, that he did love Gabby and that he did take his own life because he could not live with what he had done. And he probably felt like he didn't deserve to live for what he had done. You know, it wasn't just about being a coward and not wanting to face, you know, going to prison and prosecution and the persecution for what he had done. So I have mixed emotions about knowing exactly what he said in his notebook. I am a longtime Nirvana fan. I love Kurt Cobain. But it took me 20 years to fully read Kurt Cobain's suicide note all the way through. And what I'm about to say may sound just as cold-blooded as anything in this whole case, but what I'm wondering is if the way to find some sort of means to an end and some kind of justice for Gabby is to release publicly Brian's confession and what he wrote in his notebook in full. And he basically be judged in the court of public opinion and prosecuted in the court of public opinion. You know, normally when someone pleads guilty to a crime, the judge asks them to allocute, basically confess, what they did. And so that's kind of why I'm saying this. Brian has admitted he's guilty. And the FBI has released to those of us in the John Q public that Brian did admit that he killed Gabby and that he had accepted responsibility. So that's basically a guilty plea. This is just all outside of a courtroom. Think of this, it's outside of a courtroom. It's in the court of public opinion. So why not just release his confession, his letters and whatnot? I don't need, if he wrote letters to his parents, I don't necessarily feel I need to hear that part of what he had to say. All I want to hear is his confession of killing Gabby and possibly why he did it, and how he felt about it and whatnot. That's the part of this that I'm talking about. So, maybe if that is released to the public, that will be a way of Brian pleading guilty and allocuting his crime. I don't know how the Petito Schmidt family feels about that. And I certainly don't know how Chris and Roberta feel about that. I'm sure they would feel a lot of shame, But I'm sorry, this is what it is. Your son murdered a young woman. And he has to pay for what he did. Because this eye for an eye justice that these parents have been left with, like I said, I don't know how Chris and Roberta feel, but I don't feel like the Petitos and Schmidts are comfortable with that. Well, your son killed my daughter, and now your son's dead. So, an eye for an eye. I don't think the Petitos and Schmidts are comfortable with that. They are good people. And I just don't think that sets well with them. Maybe in the anger side of it, it might, but not in the moral code of conduct. I really don't think that it probably sets very well with them. So I would like to hear what you all think about it. Do you think that this would bring some kind of means to an end to Reed Brian's confession to the John Q. public and look at it as though this is his plea of guilty and allocuting his crime. Let me know what you all think about it and how you feel about it. And, as I said, we'll have to wait and see, what happens in this civil case. I'm really anxious to hear what evidence they possibly have that points to their attempt to help Brian flee the country. This was being talked about early on in the case. Someone that is involved with Chris Laundrie and this company, that fruit juice company or whatever it is that he has, is based in Mexico. So there was a lot of talk about Brian fleeing to Mexico. I don't know, but apparently there just wasn't enough evidence to prosecute Chris and Roberta Laundrie for any kind of accessory after the fact, in that they helped Brian get rid of any kind of evidence or anything like that after he killed Gabby. So they weren't able to be prosecuted in a criminal courtroom for anything like that either. So I just don't know. What I do know is this is honestly one of the saddest cases that I've ever followed. It really is. 2 young lives with their whole lives ahead of them lost. Anyway, everyone have a great weekend, and I will look forward to your comments and what you think about what I have said. So, everyone have a great weekend, and please remember, be the change that you wish to see in this world. As Michael Jackson said, it starts with the man in the mirror. Peace out, everyone.
Hey, y'all, this is Ella May, reminding you to please go over on Spotify and Anchor and follow my Mimi's weekly podcast. Just search the Ruby Pearl Glamper True Crime Podcast. Mimi follows a lot of trials in the news over there, so please follow us on Spotify and Anchor. You can also follow us on Facebook. Just search the Ruby Pearl Glamper. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below here on our YouTube channel, because you're all invited back next week. shoes off. Y'all come back now. You hear?